Chapter 40, Song of Moses and the Lamb. Over the next 38 years in the wilderness, we read nothing about the Israelites coming to their senses and realizing how evil they had acted towards God and His chosen leaders. How wonderful it would have been to learn that Israel had a revival experience. Sadly, this never happened. They never said sorry, and therefore they never abandoned the idea that God was a destroying warrior king. How different things would have been if Israel could have done what the pagan Ninevites did. The people of Nineveh believed God's message, and from the greatest to the least, they declared a fast and put on burlap to show their sorrow. When the king of Nineveh heard what Jonah was saying, he stepped down from his throne and took off his royal robes. He dressed himself in burlap and sat on a heap of ashes. Then the king and his nobles sent this decree throughout the city: no one, not even the animals from your herds and flocks, may eat or drink anything at all. People and animals alike must wear garments of mourning, and everyone must pray earnestly to God. They must turn from their evil ways and stop all their violence. Who can tell? Perhaps even yet God will change his mind and hold back his fierce anger from destroying us. Jonah 3:5-9. For 40 years, Israel had received manna in the desert. The pillar of cloud and fire had shaded and warmed them. Yet, in all this goodness, Israel never repented. Harden not your hearts, as in the provocation, in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Hebrews 3:8-10. They did not know God's ways. Therefore, they could not teach their children God's ways. And the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the valley of the Sered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war was consumed from the midst of the camp, just as the Lord had sworn to them. For indeed, the hand of the Lord was against them, to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. Deuteronomy 2:14-15. All those who took the sword when they left Egypt perished in the wilderness, proving true the principle that Jesus taught, that all those who take the sword will die with the sword. The only inheritance that the generation of men 20 years old and up gave to their children was murmuring and complaining. There was no example of repentance, confession, and restoration. So, when Israel came to the border of Canaan again, the children repeated the sins of their fathers. There was no water for the people to drink at that place, so they rebelled against Moses and Aaron. The people blamed Moses and said, if only we had died in the Lord's presence with our brothers. Why have you brought the congregation of the Lord's people into this wilderness to die, along with all our livestock? Why did you make us leave Egypt and bring us here to this terrible place? This land has no grain, no figs, no grapes, no pomegranates, and no water to drink. Numbers 20, 2-5. The children repeated the sins of their fathers. They believed God wanted to kill them in the wilderness. In this frame of mind, it would be impossible for Israel to cleanse Canaan as Jesus did the temple. They did not have the Spirit of God in them, which would cause their enemies to flee with the hornet sting or terror of conviction. Exodus 23:28, New Living Translation. After all that the Lord had done for Israel, Moses became distressed. All the instruction, prayer, and guidance which Moses had given them from the Lord was cast aside. Jesus faced the same thing on the night before he died. But here at this table, sitting among us as a friend, is the man who will betray me. For it has been determined that the Son of Man must die. But what sorrow awaits the one who betrays him? The disciples began to ask each other, which of them would ever do such a thing? Then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. Luke 22, 21-24. Just as Jesus was about to face his greatest test, the disciples are arguing about which of them is the greatest. Is it any wonder that Christ felt such a weight come upon him as he went into the Garden of Gethsemane? All of his prayers, teaching, and love seemed to vanish in a moment. How easy it would have been for Christ to do as Moses did and strike the rock twice. But who of us could endure such a test as this? The entire life work of Moses seemed pointless. Surely they were all going to perish, leaving no inheritance. The people just kept bleating like dumb sheep. God is going to kill us in the wilderness, all the while feeding their faces with bread from heaven and water springing forth in the desert. Moses went out from the camp to the sanctuary to seek the Lord and pray. He was wrestling with his deep sorrow for the children of Israel and their failure to take hold of the arm of the Lord and trust him. The Lord patiently instructs Moses as to the procedure to be done to give them water to drink. He was to simply speak to the rock, a symbol of Christ, 1 Corinthians 10:4. At the beginning of their journey, Moses was instructed to strike the rock, a symbol of Christ taking punishment before God will show mercy to Israel. But now, on the borders of Canaan, a new symbol was to be employed. Simply speak to the rock. Sacrifice and offering were not required. For an expanded view of this, see the book Atonement, Chapter 8, available for download from fatheroflove.info. The grief in Moses, caused by the sins of Israel, turned to human wrath. The urge for punishment sends forth a pulse from the mind of Moses, manifesting in a double striking of the rock. The patient meekness of Moses had extended further than any other human which had ever lived. But this event found that last remnant of self, bringing it to the surface. The powerful arms of Jesus can carry us through all these trials if we sense our total, helpless dependence. But how easy it is for us to express our anger when people fail to do the right thing. Our sense of condemning judgment rises instantly, expressing itself in violent force. In this present age, when humanity has seemingly lost its ability to define what is a man or woman, driving us towards a complete breakdown of social structures as defined in Scripture, many are sensing that impulse to arise and strike in retaliation to such rebellion against God, who made us male and female. Genesis 1:27. Regardless of the fact that the people had pushed Moses and Aaron to this point, it was evident that they had not done what the Lord commanded them. Yet our Father is ever merciful. Why couldn't He just forgive them for their mistake? Why did they also have to die in the wilderness? The time has come for Aaron to join his ancestors in death. He will not enter the land I am giving the people of Israel, because the two of you rebelled against my instructions concerning the water at Meribah. Numbers 20:24. One day the Lord said to Moses, "Climb one of the mountains east of the river, and look out over the land I have given the people of Israel. After you have seen it, you will die like your brother Aaron, for you both rebelled against my instructions in the wilderness of Zin. When the people of Israel rebelled, you failed to demonstrate my holiness to them at the waters. These are the waters of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin." Then Moses said to the Lord, "O Lord, you are the God who gives breath to all creatures. Please appoint a new man as leader for the community." Numbers 27:12-16. Moses did not resist the command of God. He simply asks the Lord to appoint a new leader. But why did God require this? We look to Jesus to understand this mystery. "For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." Matthew 7:2. "For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son." John 5:22. "You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one." John 8:15. It was not the Lord that determined Moses and Aaron should die, but it was the justice system that Moses and Aaron understood that determined this. We recall what Moses said to the Lord when Israel had sinned a great sin. "But now, if you will only forgive their sin, but if not, erase my name from the record you have written." Exodus 32:32. In the case of the golden calf, Moses had judged that the people were worthy of death. He lovingly asked the Lord if he could take their place. When he struck the rock twice, he felt terrible for what he had done. He passed sentence on himself. God could only judge him as he himself had judged. Because, as Jesus tells us, the Father does not judge anyone. Secondly, the people were aware that Moses did not do exactly as God commanded. They did not believe in a God who simply forgives. They believed sin must be punished. If God simply forgave Moses, the people could think that it didn't matter if you obey the Lord or not. God had to uphold the sacredness of the law in the eyes of the people. Thirdly, when the people saw Moses and Aaron punished, their own guilt rose up in them. They knew they were largely responsible for what happened. The death of Moses and Aaron acted as part of an atonement for their sins. In punishing Moses and Aaron, the Israelites could begin to feel free knowing the issue was dealt with and God was appeased through their death. But more sacrifice was required. As we see in the cross of Christ, not only the death of the innocent is required, but also the death of the guilty. Immediately after the death of Aaron, Israel made a vow to destroy a tribe of the Canaanites. This would complete the atonement for them. But like Christ, who was raised shortly after his death, our Father in heaven had far greater plans for Moses. Shortly after he died, God called him forth from the grave and took him to heaven. Yet Michael the archangel, in contending with the devil, when he disputed about the body of Moses, dared not bring against him a reviling accusation, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Jude 1:9. The Lord could see that the weight of the people was wearing Moses out. In allowing him to die, he could take his dear friend to heaven to live with him forever. God might have told Moses, "I forgive you," but he had a better and more merciful plan. He did not take him to the earthly Canaan, but the heavenly Canaan, the true fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. To Moses, all seemed a complete failure just before he died, but he held on in faith and trusted the Lord implicitly. This is a song which both Moses and the Lamb sing, Revelation 15:3, a song of complete trust. When all the disciples forsook Jesus and fled, all seemed lost. But Jesus committed himself to God and trusted his Father completely. This story is important for us living in the last days, for the 144,000 will go through the same test. All will seem lost. They will feel a complete failure. Yet they will trust God's promises and overcome the beast and his image. What a precious thought! God did not condemn Moses for his actions right on the borders of the promised land. Moses condemned himself and therefore walked through a sorrowful path into death. But God turned the curse into a blessing and took him to heaven. How wonderful to look at these events through the life of Jesus with the veil removed.